Everyone, welcome. I'd like to open the meeting for the regular commission of the Port of Morrow, November 12th, 2025 at 1:30 p.m. I'm glad everyone's here. Thank you. Call to order introductions. All port commissioners are here present in the room. Randy, we'll go around the room and introduce each other. Lisa, would you like to start?
Lisa Wilfer, Port of Morrow. Eileen Hendricks, Port of Morrow. Erica Group, Order.
Mark Bad, Port of Morrow.
Gordon McKenzie, Banner, Maine.
Sherry Smith. Terry Thomas, City Director.
Randy Werber, Port of Morrow. Lucy Good, connected professional accountants.
Jacob Campbell.
Robert Everett, with all that. Grace Smith.
Jeff Wilson, Port Morrow.
Marcy Graham, Port of Morrow.
Yes, Port of Morrow. Jeff Montgomery, Port of Morrow.
Jerry Reevan.
Enjoy work, stage 7, Port of Morrow. Port of Morrow.
Erica Washington, Port of Morrow. Okay, and then online, we'll start with John Doherty.
John Doherty, City of Hebner.
Sam Cocker,
Sam Tucker, Port Attorney.
Aaron Palmquist,
Aaron Palmquist, City of Aragon.
and Tony. Sorry, I butchered that. Is it Antonia?
Yes, sorry, Antonia Kruzana, Davis Wright Tremaine.
Thank you, Barrett.
Barrett Thorson, East Oregonian.
Thank you, Kirby.
Kirby Garrett, CFM Advocates.
Jordan.
Hi, Jordan Kraus, representing myself.
Griffin. Are you there, Griffin?
Griffin Beach, Elkhorn Media.
Al McQueen. We might be muted. Kim. Kim Cutsworth, are you there?
Yes, sorry. Kim Cutsworth, Willow Creek Valley Economic Development Group.
Thank you. Emily.
Emily Collins, Community Development Authority.
Thank you. And Doug.
Hi, Doug Vanderveen with American Process Group.
Thank you, Graham. At this time, are there any conflict of interest declarations for commissioners on topics on the agenda today? Yes, I won't be participating in any discussion or voting regarding Glenn Weston. Okay. Thank you, Dan. Moving on to public comment period. Do we have any public comment registered? Consent agenda. Has everyone, commissioners, had a chance to look at consent agenda items?
Karen, we approve consent agenda as presented.
There's a motion. Do we have a second? Okay, motion and second to approve the consent agenda as presented. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous. We go into legislative updates. I guess I should have said one thing after we started, so that we do have a change in the agenda. Our audit team, Chelsea, is here. He's traveled over the mountain and would like to get home safely tonight before the moisture shows up. So we're going to move Chelsea out to the beginning of the meeting just after legislative updates. Chelsea, so just a few more minutes until we do that. Then we have one agenda item that might be of interest to people that I think we should add. Lisa, can you?
This will be under old business, other South Morrow County Water and Transportation Infrastructure Development Project.
I guess it's on. Okay. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Didn't see that on my other thing. All right, we'll move into legislative updates. I understand Ryan can't be with us today, but Kirby, you're here, please.
Yes, good afternoon. Yes, Ryan apologized for not being able to join today. She had something personal come up, but my understanding is she's providing a written update that hopefully you will receive soon if you haven't already. Probably a good thing for me that she's unable to join because I think I might need her time to go over everything happening on the federal side, where we're finally getting our act together. 43 days into the longest government shutdown in U.S. history, but we're finally coming to an end of that. Late last night, the Senate passed a bipartisan funding package, 60-40 vote, which was the bare minimum they needed to advance that. It's the culmination of really several days of intense negotiations. It's been happening behind the scenes for a little while, but they finally were able to break the partisan stalemate. So the details of the agreement, there are two major components. The first is a short-term continuing resolution that will keep all agencies funded at current funding levels through January 30th. That buys Congress time to continue negotiating bipartisan appropriations bills, but also guarantees that we're going to be back here at the negotiating table early next year. Hopefully doing it all again, but hopefully doing it in a more productive way. Secondly, the other major component is it includes a 3-bill minibus is the term. It's not in full omnibus. A minibus is the term we use in DC that fully funds the Departments of Agriculture and the FDA, funds the Department of Veterans Affairs and military construction projects, and then the operations of Congress for the rest of the fiscal year. So that goes all the way into the end of September of 2026. So those 3 bills, it was kind of the lowest hanging fruit, largely bipartisan, and they were ready to move months ago. But those bills did include congressionally directed spending or earmarks, which is good to see for our purposes and the purpose of other projects across Oregon and nationwide to see that moving forward. And so I guess in addition to the funding aspects, the other kind of major aspects of this agreement were it included protections for federal workforce employees, guarantees that those employees that were laid off during the shutdown are rehired, ensures they get full back pay, and then requires the agencies to notify Congress as they basically unwind those layoff notices. It also provides a guarantee that there will, and a blanket prohibition on any other reductions in force across all other departments through the end of January, the end of the CR date. So that means that there will be no more shutdown related firings as long as the CR is in effect. And then lastly, there was the key healthcare component. So as part of the compromise, Democrats secured a guaranteed vote in the Senate by mid-December on extending the Obamacare premium subsidies that expire at the end of the calendar year. These are the subsidies that have been at the center of the shutdown fight discussion. And Republicans refused to negotiate, so they didn't want to be negotiating while the government was held hostage. But this forces the issue kind of back into the spotlight before the subsidies lap at the end of the year. However, there's obviously no guarantee on the outcome of that vote. It's likely to fail in the Senate, but even if it passed, which it could, House Speaker Mike Johnson has refused to vote on it. He opposes a blanket extension and wants kind of a more nuanced approach and broader discussion about healthcare policy. So bottom line is that fight will continue to play out. So in terms of next steps, the Senate passed it, like I mentioned. The package still needs to be passed by the House and signed by the president. House members are flying back to DC or have been flying back to DC today. Speaker Mike Johnson has kept them out of session during the entire shutdown. It's been over 50 days since the Republican caucus has all been together. And so it's kind of crazy. We're finally back in action. They are expected to have the votes to pass the bill in the House. And, there's some Republicans that are looking at holding out, but Trump is expected to lean pretty heavily on them. There's moderate Democrats that might cross party lines and vote for it. And that kind of gets into the political outcome. The Democratic Party, most members, particularly the progressives in both chambers, are pretty infuriated that these 8 Democrats on the Senate side took a vote in support of this and caved to provide the votes needed to advance it out of the Senate. They feel like they gave up the main bargaining chip without getting movement on the ACA subsidies. And then there's, outside groups and progressive members calling for the ouster of Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, with a few, calling him to step aside. Even though he actually ended up voting against the agreement, they think he should have been able to keep the caucus in line, basically, and keep everyone unified. So, yeah, where does everything go from here outside of the CR agreement? Assuming it passes, I think it actually bodes fairly well for the rest of the appropriations process. They've shown that they can at least get a few of these bills done, something they could not do earlier this year when they passed a year-long CR. The transportation and HUD bill is what funds most of the MARAD and DOT programs that we're pretty interested in. That was not included in this 3-bill minibus, but is probably the next lowest hanging fruit. So I think it's possible we could see that move by the end of the next year, probably in January, but it will likely be in whatever package moves next. What we haven't seen yet is the financial services bill, which is where we are trying to get funding, working with Senator Merkley and Senator Wyden for the IOWN business incubator. The Senate hasn't even gotten to marking that bill up yet. It's a little more controversial because it's what funds the IRS, but fingers crossed we'll see movement on all of this pretty soon. So last item, promise I'll wrap up here soon. We are approaching, even despite all of this nonsense about the shutdown, we are approaching the next round of federal grant programs. DOT is expected to start releasing the next round of the Port Infrastructure Development Program, and shortly after that, the Marine Highways Program. And so we're having a lot of discussions about Terminal 3 and the structural upgrades that are needed for the face dock and for the gantry crane, and how do we develop a strategic approach to pursue both state funding and federal funding. Obviously, all of those opportunities are pretty competitive, but the good news is we've got several bites of the apple, like I mentioned, PIDP, the Connect Oregon grant at the state level, Marine Highway grant funding, and then we can also look at congressionally directed spending as well. So we think there's a really good story to tell for that project. The continuation and expansion of container shipments by barge, high, wide, and heavy shipments coming through the terminal, particularly for the energy supply chain, renewable energy supply chain. So we think that'll resonate well with both sides of the aisle, and are kind of gearing up to make a push for that next year. So with that, I'm sure I've thrown enough at you for today, but appreciate the opportunity, as always, to give an update, and happy to take any questions if you have them.
Thank you, Barry. That's right. That was a lot. Hopefully good news. When did you say when the House may possibly vote?
Yeah, I'm not sure if I did, but yeah, they're expected to vote tonight on it. The hope is to pass the bill by 8 p.m. And the president would be expected to sign it tonight, and the government will be funded when we all wake up tomorrow.
Good news, right? Anyone have questions for Barry? Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you.
And yes, we do have a written report from Ryan on state issues, so it should have been on your desk. All right, at this time, we will go into our audit report. I'll jump ahead in the agenda. Chelsea, do you mind presenting, please?
Okay. So I think I'll go with the next professional accounts. I think I've met all commissioners at this point. First of all, just thank you guys for contracting with our firm. You're absolutely great for again, so we appreciate that. We always have to thank your staff. Obviously, your accounting staff, Jason and Arlene, are an integral part of this audit process, but you have a lot of other staff that we work with when we're here on site, when we come and do the actual field work of the audit. So they all have full-time jobs when we're not here. We bring a team of 5 or 6 on site for about a week. So we appreciate all of their help with that. And then in addition, you guys have a formal audit committee, and so we met with Kelly and Joel, and so we appreciate their time as well as some additional communication requirements that we have as the auditors. I'm gonna go ahead and give you guys an overview of what we're doing here, and then we'll go ahead and do just kind of a financial highlight section like we usually do, but if you guys have any questions at any point, don't hesitate to interrupt and ask. The first thing is just what we're actually doing when we're performing the audit. So as an Oregon municipality, you are required to have an audit in the state of Oregon if you have expenditures in excess of $1 million. You are also required to have what's referred to as a federal compliance audit if you have federal expenditures that exceed $750,000. The court was over that threshold this year for the fiscal year ending June 30th of 2025. So we were actually performing 2 audits while we were here doing those audits. We are not doing a fraud investigation. We're really just making sure that your financial statements are materially stated. You have certain governmental accounting standards that you have to abide by, and we're making sure that you're in compliance with those standards. I'm gonna give you some highlights of the actual report that we had. So in front of you, you should have a couple different things. The first is a separate letter, what we refer to as our governance letter. That's outside of the bound packet. But that letter is telling you that is really just to you guys as commissioners, because that's really who we're responsible to report to at the end of this, is that there are estimations that go into the audit process. So as the port, you have certain estimations. Big ones are gonna be your depreciation expense, your borrowing rates for leases. You're gonna have what we refer to as your other post-employment benefits. That's gonna be in that letter as well. Any new accounting standards that you guys are subject to, so there were a couple of new accounting standards this year, what we refer to as GASB, or governmental accounting standards. Board issued 101 for compensated absences, and then there was 102, which was certain risk disclosures, which didn't affect you as much as the 101 did. Attached to that letter, if we had any, and we have in the past, would be any adjusting journal entries. You will see that there are none attached. What that means is that we did not make any adjustments to the port's financial statements. So the financial statements that we were given by the Port of Morrow, we did not make any adjustments to that. That also includes no past adjustments. So we did not have any past adjusting journal there, where we would give them and you would have the opportunity to pass on them. So very, very positive there. Inside of your board packet here, the first couple of pages, pages 1 and 2 of that is going to be what we refer to as our independent auditor's report. That very first paragraph of that is really our opinion. And so that's, you read nothing more of that whole report, read that very first paragraph. They did change that a couple years ago to move that to the front. You will find there that you are receiving an unmodified, or what we refer to as a clean audit opinion. So we do believe that your financial statements are materially stated in all aspects. So that's the best opinion that you can receive. I know it's kind of accounting jargon, but that's kind of the gist of that. And then right behind that in this packet is going to be pages 4 to 7 is what we refer to as the management discussion and analysis. This is really, obviously this whole packet is put together by your staff, but that pages 4 to 7 is a really good summary of what's going on in the entire packet. So if you don't read all 100 pages of it, if you just read those few pages, it has some charts in there. It also is the only place that you're going to find comparative data, which is going to be from the prior year to the current year. So again, that's a great place to look for summaries at management discussion and analysis. Beyond that, I'll give you some very, very high level financial performance statistics. Obviously, this is for, like I said, fiscal year ending June 30th, 2025. This is some historic data at this point. So we're not going to go in real in depth on this. You guys get very accurate financial data each meeting from your accounting department. So just some big numbers here. If we look at your governmental activities for the fiscal year ending 2025, they were just over $2 million. Business type activities, 189 million, and your total net position was 191 million. So that was an increase of about 33 million from the prior year. Then the next few pages of your report, so pages 13 and then 17 and 18, you're going to have your fund financial statements. And so on page 13, you'll see your governmental fund balance. This year, the ending fund balance for the governmental fund was about almost $1.3 million. That was down about $634,000 from the prior year, but there was also a $3 million transfer from the general fund to the proprietary fund. So, with that. And then we always like to look at your proprietary fund, your cash balance. So for the ending fiscal year, it was just over $24 million, which was an increase of about $2.5 million from fiscal year ending 2020. After that, in your report, you're going to see a couple of other things. You're going to see some required financial statement data, and then you're also going to see what we refer to as your notes to your financial statement. So the notes are kind of in the middle. That's going to start on page 19 to 34. So really the bulk of the verbiage is going to be the notes to the financial statements, because there were no major changes to your accounting policies with governmental accounting standards this year. There was no new changes to your notes, but that's always a good place to look for some more detail on your capital assets and your debt expenditures. So refer to that. But then the next main thing that I'm sure everybody always wants the detail of is another report that we have to report on, which is the independent Oregon auditor's report. So that's going to be toward the back. That's on pages 51 and 52 for your report. In that, we are going to be looking at different things required by the state of Oregon, so that's gonna be your deposits. Because you are deposit financial institutions, the local budget law, contracting law, those are other things that Oregon is gonna have us report on. You will see that we had no violations in that report either, so very positive opinion on your Oregon report. That is very uncommon to have, not even one budget violation, no public contracting violation, so big highlight there. The next few pages then of your packet, starting on page 53, is gonna be what I refer to as your federal compliance audit. So that's gonna be the last 7 or so pages of that. That is because you have federal expenditures in excess of $750,000. So within that, your total federal expenditures were about 1.8 million. We have to look at certain major programs, one of which that we tested this year, and we tested it in the prior year because it was the largest, was the National Infrastructure Investment. We had again an unmodified clean opinion on that, so we had to dig into that. There are certain regulations over federal programs that we have to test, and we did not find any problems with that program, so a very positive outcome there as well. You will see that we had no findings and questions costs related to the federal compliance audit or related to your financial statement audit. That is a very good overview of this. Does anybody have any questions, concerns, comments for me?
And first, I'm thankful that we are going to do our audit. It's hard to find people who do audits nowadays, so thank you. And I'm glad to hear that things reported out so well. Thank you. If I don't have questions, I will look at it more in depth later. Does anyone else have questions or comments? No, pretty hard argument with being on it. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Justin. Are we taking snap? Oh, wait. Not sure. Are you supposed to do it now or? We just
vote to accept the audit report.
I would move we accept the audit report. I say. Have a motion and second to approve the audit report as presented for the discussion of questions. All those in favor, please say aye. 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 Unanimous. Thank you. Thanks, Phil. All right, well, we come to our normal agenda schedule. And so we'll go into old business. First item of business is CBA updates. Please. Joel.
Joe, yes. Let's see, a couple items. As Greg pointed out, that Tappanee, is that how it's pronounced? Is on-site, construction's begun on the road. There are now 7 igloos. We're now up to 9. We're up to 9, okay, it's going fast. We better get one. Anyway, 7 igloos signed, at least, and then, now there were, at the meeting, I wasn't at the meeting, I listened to it, you had several policies, did those get taken up, or? So they were considered, but not adopted yet. Correct, okay. The big topic that came up is, a personal services contract. We had an emergency meeting Monday to talk about this. I want to open and start with, at the meeting, I listened to the meeting that I missed. Both Lisa and Kim, Lisa very explicitly refers to developing a contract. We had set a deadline of November of this meeting, stop. And at least some took that seriously. Kim took that very seriously and also said, referred to doing a contract or referred to meeting with Elizabeth and working on something to deal with this issue. It's been an issue. It's been around for several months. We've been trying to get action, and a lot of work went into this with Lisa, Kim, Elizabeth, and Greg ideas, and to make this presentation to the board, which I think was great. It has positives. One of its first positives is the budget which was passed through the budget process and was passed, has $482,669 for personnel. This lease or this personal service contract is $294,000. So there's a savings right up front. This will include a job description. There will be no need for an employee handbook. CDA would be out of the payroll business. And it has provisions in there. There's termination clauses on both ways, both for cause and for convenience. They're partial. Could be, as things change, this can be negotiated. It has a 3-year term, but I think all of those positives there. There were some issues to talk about, and we will be meeting. The closest meeting we could get was October 25th or November 25th. To review changes and to approve this. This gets before tomorrow out of the employment business and the CDA. CDA has to do this, and for tomorrow's talk about remaining fiscal agent for terms of grants and whatnot. It was suggested that be defined what the fiscal agent is and does. That may require an IGA fix or probably would, but I'm in favor of moving forward with this. It doesn't solve all issues, but it solves some, a lot, and it also does, again, it sets up a format to move forward.
So if there's another meeting on the 25th, the reason for that is to refine this policy some more.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. So we have dropped it date
Yeah,
today.
we do. I think this could go. I think we should extend our date, drop dead date. Elizabeth Howard was pretty adamant to not let the fiscal agent lapse. That would be a big problem.
It's a requirement.
But I think action is being taken. There's, which has been, it's kind of exciting for me to see, rather than just talk going around and around. So CDA tends to work into locked into loops, and you can't get out of the loop. You can't get it. This is the next step issue.
Yeah, I mean, the report continued to extend the deadline out, so I'm glad that we did say today actions are being taken. We do still have to make that. We can't be without a fiscal agent for the IGA, so we'll have to address that topic today.
Yes.
So you're generally positive about directions going, and
I am.
Okay.
Sure. I have a question. We are still fiscal agents, so that does need to be addressed. But when we did make that motion, we also made that motion that all the bills would be paid back to us before that was ever extended again, and I don't know if that's happened. That was part of the motion, and I don't believe that that's happened. I also have a question for Joel as our representative. It's my understanding that we waived a exception to a public procurement process. And I have real heartburn with that. And the reason for that is there was no written findings and no justification for that whatsoever, why we averted that public process. And I have 19 reasons written down why it's a good idea to have a public procurement process. And I'm going to read those. Removes any conflicts of interest, responsible spending of taxpayer money, promotes competition, equal opportunity for all, increases transparency, mitigates risk, achieves a broader social and economic goals, protects the public interest, builds trust, provides corruption protection and favoritism, achieves the best value, maintains financial accountability, and stimulates innovation. I think that the 190 gives the flexibility to do that, to exempt those. But I don't understand the reasoning behind it, why we didn't go out for a public process for this contract. Do you have any justification or written things of, well, that's part of the process, is is to have a written or justification of why it is exempt, a finding of some sort for the public.
I guess she has two things. I think Greg, having been so involved in this for so long, is uniquely situated, his experience to wrap this up, if you will, in the next 2 or 3 years. The other is the goal of this action isn't strictly personalities. The goal of this action was to take what we're doing and move it into something where the Port of Morrow is not the employer, the CDA is the employer, and this is doing that. It's not, it wasn't the intention of this.
I thought the intention, according to the last meeting, was to bring forward written agreements or written, options to move
Well,
forward. One of those,
One option
which,
that disappeared right off the bat, the meeting was Umatilla County saying no.
pardon me?
Umatilla County said no to doing it, for being in.
Right, but there was
So
other
that's
options.
one option gone.
There was
So
other options that were supposed to be, developed and brought to the board, and they weren't. Instead, it was voted on for, to reverse the public contracting, process and to go strictly into that. Where you never did what you told the public you were gonna do, which was, spell out those other options. It was never brought to the board.
So you're taking exception to the exception.
I am. I think the public
Right.
process is paramount to government ethics, if nothing else.
Well, I guess I don't agree. I think it does qualify, to do that, to do this action.
So in order to do that action,
Yeah.
you have to,
But
go ahead.
Lost my train of thought.
So I'm going to read this, the LCDR, which is the contracting board, which is what you guys are, has the authority to adopt its own special procurement processes. These rules may allow for alternative purchasing methods, even for large contracts, provided the district can justify that the procedure is unlikely to encourage favoritism and justify the procedure is unlikely to, on telephone. It's one. Provided the district can justify that the procedure is unlikely to encourage favoritism or diminish competition and that it benefits the public interest. I just want to know if you found those lines.
I think it is in the public interest that this moves forward. And this is a way to do it. Is it perfect? No, it doesn't solve all issues, but it solves several. The Port of Morrow and the CDA is.
I don't believe that it's about issue solving. I believe it's about procurement. It doesn't follow the lines of procurement. Doesn't give us any public trust in what that government agency is doing without having a procedure.
Well, I guess I've stated my reason is that he is uniquely positioned to help bring this to an end, and so. Yes, that justifies moving forward. This had also, saves $188,000.
So do you know if those were written or presented to the board before the motion was made? For the execution of the
I
exception?
don't know what exactly was, there was definitely discussion about this issue,
Okay.
yes. But
Okay. Any other discussion? I did have a question. Greg, what are the two policies that are under development? You, Joel mentioned two policies for Indiana.
There's about 7 policies that are on the CDA there, from everything from Visa card policy to public record modification policy, obviously drives by the council.
All the nuts and bolts of running for.
Correct. So as the CDA goes through a maturation process, those policies continue to increase.
All right. My understanding that the CDA has responsibility for voting on this exemption and it passed 3-2. So, comments are noted. But I'm not sure that we can change anything that's happened thus far. So.
Do I need, support for this to okay a personal services contract, we'll need to come back before us.
Well,
After the October 25th.
you're our representative from the board,
Uh,
you have our authority, right? That's.
I think I'd like to see it, mostly in the fact that you say it's a 3-year contract, and I think that things are gonna move and shape a little bit different. And if we're locked into a 3-year contract for
It
a
doesn't.
full-time employee that we don't hate,
as I said, I'll take part, there's termination clause for cause or for convenience. There's also partial termination clauses for when things change, it can be modified.
right, but that costs us money.
What's that?
But that costs us money to terminate a clause, especially for an undetermined amount, or for an undetermined
Well,
reason.
We'll be talking about that.
Pardon me?
That'll be a discussion topic at our meeting, yeah. Would it be 1 year with additions or, yeah. That was brought up. I don't know, that wasn't decided.
So really, we are talking about giving you something that we haven't seen yet.
It's been publicly available for several days.
Right, but I mean, the modifications to it, I understand that JD was going to work on the scope and other people were working on other things.
That could be fine, but
So will it be finalized by the next meeting?
by our next meeting. I don't know, we'll be voting on it. One way or the other, yeah.
This is a, devil's advocate, I wonder if certain members of the CDA board will have the authority of their boards
That's
to
correct.
authorize it at the next meeting. Because I
Decision.
think, unlike what I might have said just now, you have the authority. I think other board members do not have
Do
the
not.
authority.
That is correct.
So,
That will come up.
Good.
So we may be to look at it
yeah, we may come back to us when we're back together.
one way or the other.
The topic at hand, though, is fiscal agent, for the time being. I am optimistic that an answer is coming, so I'm not opposed to extending fiscal agent myself, but I'd like to hear from other members.
I thought we were already the fiscal agent and that hasn't changed.
We've given notice, though, today's our last day.
Of employment, not of the fiscal agent part. Just of the employment contract.
Oh,
That's correct.
okay, my apologies.
Right.
So we need to extend the
Appointments.
employment part,
We would have to do that.
yes.
Just payroll services.
Just
not-
payroll.
they're
Okay,
not our employees.
They're not our employees.
correct,
just payroll.
sorry, yeah,
But we will continue doing payroll for them.
but then,
My question is, are we still paying for that, sir? Are we still putting the money out for that? So that was the other big
We are.
caveat.
On that topic, has money been paid by other parties of the CDA? I think I heard maybe.
We have not been. Okay, relating to the grant, we're still owed match dollars from the tribes, Morrow County, Umatilla County, and the Port of Umatilla. That totals $95,000, $95,670.29. Of expenses that we have paid directly, outside of the grant. We determined that 217,000 of those are for the Morrow expenses. Those relate primarily to the work needed to be done to do the purchase option agreement with the CDA. The remaining items, which includes payroll, the Baron Lieberman invoice, the Umatilla County litigation, and a few final payments that had to do with operations of CDA. That totals $486,371. A quarter, excuse me, 1/5 of that amount would be $97,274, and we are owed that by each of the other parties. Along with that, there are expenses that have been paid directly by Port of Umatilla. I don't have that summary in front of me. So potentially we owe Port of Umatilla 1/5 of what they paid, which would offset the 97 onto us. So between the two, 95,670 and 486,372. The total is 500 and something under 600,000. This is payroll through 10/21. And so we will have potentially two more payrolls to add to those, depending on the hours submitted, including benefits. Those run between 9,300 and 9,900 a pay period.
You're saying to get to our next meeting, Eileen, is that?
I'm sorry,
No,
what?
that's just our, but it hasn't come through yet.
Oh, it has not, oh, okay, thank you.
So potentially two more. So that would also get us to the next.
Yeah, the two more would get us through the 25th meeting date.
CDA's.
Right. Right.
And then you mentioned the 217,000, not part of the 581 figure, that's for Morrow exclusive expenses, correct?
Yes, those are expenses we authorized to get the paperwork in place to get the purchase agreement signed in an expeditious manner.
I'd like to make a motion, Chair. I'd like to make a motion that we extend our employment, what'd you call them, Brandon? Payroll services, thank you. Only if the CDA considers removing the exemption and going out for a public procurement process. I think it's important.
So a reversal of their vote to exempt the process, right?
Give them some extra time, get it out and get it right, so they're not in a hurry.
No, you guys need to finish your.
Yeah, we've got a motion on the floor, so we need to have either second or again. Being no second, please, do you have comments?
We would have to know that in the next 2 hours in order to terminate employment today. So.
If the payroll services are not continued today with this meeting.
Right.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we continue to pay payroll costs and do we anticipate, I need to ask a question for clarification on the motion. Do we anticipate any further bills needing to be paid in the next?
Directly from us, I don't believe so, do you? No, they're all going directly to CDA now.
Okay, so that he continue to pay payroll costs.
Your motion is to continue the payroll service for the CDA. Is there a timeline or is there?
I don't want to say indefinite. Let's go for 2 months, for the next 2 months.
2 months. Okay.
Can I ask a parliamentary question? Do we need to repeal our last motion then?
It does, for lack of a second.
No, the one that we had a meeting ago that said that we would not do this again unless all of the bills were paid.
Oh, I see what you're saying, that second part. Still okay.
I don't have memory of that. I'm not saying you're not right, but I have no memory of that being part of the previous budget.
It's in the minutes.
Oh, it is?
I'm pretty sure it was in the minutes that
Oh, okay.
we were made whole for our financial obligations from the dealer grant.
Do that in one motion, I suppose you could, if you amended your motion. Or we can do it separately and let this draw to the lack of a second, or the wish.
I'll withdraw my motion, maybe we should check to see if we need to repeal our earlier motion, but legal counsel.
Okay.
Yeah. Sometimes I know, but I don't know if this one does.
Alright, so is this something that we will then have an executive session with our legal counsel? Or is that needed? What's the opinion here?
I don't know that we need to go into executive session to discuss it. I don't know if Sam's in a position to advise us right now, though.
So it's a little hard for me to understand the entire conversation, but I think the issue is at a prior meeting, a motion was made that had certain conditions on it. And now you are considering action which would be inconsistent with that prior motion. And I think that happens. I think that you always have the right to amend something or supersede it in a subsequent meeting. Now, you might feel that's unfair, or you might have other principles, but the fact that a public entity in one meeting says, this is what we want, and in a subsequent meeting changes that's legal, that happens, and if that's the question, then it's up to the commission at this time as to whether it wants to have a motion that is inconsistent and modifies the prior motion. Does that answer the question?
It does for me, yeah. Other commissioners?
Yes.
Okay.
Eileen, can you give us the entire amount that's owed to the Port of Morrow?
Well, I would have to add those two numbers together, which I'm not good at in my head.
Are you talking about 95 plus 46, roughly speaking, so.
Probably, yeah.
The 95,670
Plus whatever we owe them.
plus 46,371.
Do we owe that one now? They owe us 80%.
80% of that number. Oh, excuse me, no, 80% of the 486 and 100% of the 95. 486, 371. Okay, at 80%. Plus 95,670.
That's 484, 766, 80 cents.
484, what?
766
766.
and 80 cents.
I don't believe we're going to get this money out of anybody before we have a crisis of payroll. And so I understand, well, that we need to get the money from our partners. I really do.
We're fiscally responsible for this. Can I ask a question, Greg, would you answer a question? Does the CDA have money to cover your, payroll for these last 2 weeks?
I would share with you that earlier today, several of us met with Morrow County, in a conversation bringing their bill current, and that will be forthcoming very shortly.
I'd heard they had a meeting, moved some money so that they could adjusted their budget so they could pay their shifts. I heard that at the last meeting. I don't know
Yeah, I was.
how long that takes.
That Jensen was there, commented that, the commissioners had asked for some additional information before they made the final decision, but if they're moving money in their budget, I would assume that they at least have the ability to do that.
So would that money be coming back to the port, or would that money be going to the CDA?
Like my understanding that it was for past.
I would think it'd be coming to the board.
Past amounts, right, so it would come to the board.
All invoices related to the grant always said payable to Port of Morrow, even though it was issued by the CPA.
Okay.
How much of that, I'm sorry, how much of that was, designated for the invoice that they got, the 200? Didn't we all get an invoice for 250K or something?
No, that's unrelated.
That's not, they haven't,
That's operations for the current year, as I understand it, yes.
so would any of that money pay the payroll? Would be eligible to pay the payroll?
If they should choose to do so. To my knowledge, they've only received funds from Port of Umatilla and Port of Morrow, unless you received checks from anyone else in the last week.
My understanding is, Confederated Tribes in Umatilla are in a very similar situation to Morrow County. And are looking for a modified invoice that meets their style of, payment, and we're in the process of working through that.
There is that for past incurred already, well, future is correct. So very much the same as Morrow County. Yeah. What is your request then? What are you saying, Kelly, about?
I would just like to make sure that any money that comes into the CDA goes back to the port first.
I think it will, right?
It will.
Well, I think it's clear we have an agreement, an IGA, that says that those other entities are responsible for those funds as well.
No, we don't. That's the problem with the IGA, is it does not specifically say that. That's the catch.
We have changes that we need to make. Can't enforce it against anybody.
It says that the bills of the CDA are the CDAs and not any of the entities. So.
I'm going to muddy the water a little bit. In that, 400. Right. There also is included expenses for the igloo.
Right.
234,000, which we put in the total since we don't believe there was ever a formal motion for the court to pay that share. The other parties seem to think that there is, so very likely 234,000 of that I shouldn't be including in these numbers.
You're talking about Igloo or Oregon Trail?
Oregon Trail, I'm sorry.
Okay.
She's always correcting me. Yeah, no, the Port of Umatilla paid the igloo expenses, we paid the Oregon Trail site. I'm sorry.
I don't think that we ever had any formal agreement to do that. Ever.
Just as a note, for our next meeting, we will have on the agenda to discuss payment of bills and Morrow County, on the Morrow County side of the line, between Board of Commissioners, Morrow County and Port of Morrow. So anyway, that's a topic coming up. I did not want it today. It can't be today, it's not on the agenda, so even though it might be part of the CBA update, we're not going to have that discussion today, so.
Hi, Mr. Chair, I'm going to reinstate my previous motion to continue the payroll the next few months. I'm not going to discuss the rest of it, so.
Could we add if necessary? Because if they get all this cleared up November 25th, we need to let them take it November 25th.
I would modify my motion.
Continue payroll, so the motion on the floor is to continue payroll services by the Port of Morrow and as needed until November 25th for 2 months.
For 2 months.
For 2 months if needed.
If needed, okay, all right. We have a motion on the floor.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second discussion on the motion.
I just really feel like this is our fifth time that we've moved it, and that we shouldn't be spending the money that we don't have and that the CDA doesn't have. to pay that back, and we have no recourse to get that money back. Now,
I would just say that this is a project that's been going on forever. And it sounds like we're getting close to the end. We're there, we need to finish it off so that we can continue to move on. This is gonna be a huge project for the region, and we need to continue to finish it up. So, yes, the port is in a situation where they're investing a lot of money into the process, but we would have invested that in 10 years ago had we did the purchase of the property again. So that's my opinion.
The big picture for this acreage of prime real estate for development coming to the Port of Morrow, probably a bargain if you got not another dollar. So that's my take on it. I understand feelings of cooperation and responsibility by other partners, but yeah. Other comments? All those in favor of the motion as stated, please say aye. Aye. Opposed?
nay,
Okay, 4-1, and okay. Anything else on CDA updates? Okay. With you updates. Government's closed down. But it has, and somebody's back up, we're hoping to hear something here.
Okay, just to give you the timeline, the last time we met with the Olympia people, we were in our phone call with BQ. And that was on Thursday morning, October 16th. On Monday morning, October 20th, Olympia sent out the notification that they were immediately on furlough. So just exactly what you said, but I looked up the dates and I wanted to show off.
They stopped us about being on the DQ meeting, on the clean water meeting.
Yeah.
They were sitting in on that one, and we thought they were already.
Okay, all right, well, thank you. Yes.
But we should update and say that David is working on comments back to the kids this time. Correct.
Thank you. Moving on, CWSRF updates.
The Department of Justice is looking at the comments that David has made and will be back to us shortly.
Anything
Anything else, Simon?
These kinds of things.
No timeline.
Any questions? Moving on, Morrow County Clean Water Consortium updates. Sorry,
let's see, I'll start with, we have a meeting on Thursday at 4 p.m. here at the port. Lisa's looking at me like I've lost my mind, but I'm pretty sure that's correct.
Okay.
Hopefully it's scheduled.
Think we just got it in.
Oh.
Okay.
But it's probably scheduled for our room.
I have to have a meeting invite for it to be on my calendar.
Okay.
Yep.
And we had the last of the county meeting, very well attended, very well attended. A lot of people spoke. It ended in a finale of some kind of negotiations with West Glen United to come to some kind of agreement or what's best for everyone, or what's best individually for every household, and how we're going to go about moving that forward. And now it lies on the consortium to do those, because the county is pretty much out. The other thing that the county is out on is we're looking for a director. They have for the consortium, which would be a paid position. I think we're working on the job description as we speak. The county has just thought it was too much for them.
Looking for proposals back by December 22nd.
Yeah. Well, that's right, we did vote on agreement, so if you know anybody that's looking for a job, we have an opening there. We talked about hiring lobbyists and all kinds of different avenues at our last meeting, but the big one was the county meeting, but the county's no longer going to host those meetings, so now it's falling on the consortium.
Sort of moving on, reaching out.
Yep.
Did you feel that the process is moving along to actually getting more things that are in the ground, or if we're applying for grants, I guess that's the ways away.
Yeah, applying for grants is a tough one because it's only, seems that the grants are only available for the municipalities. I know I've had some discussions that I kind of felt like we were putting the cart before the horse because we haven't even considered. I don't believe that the cities voted on even considering this or anything, but we've got plans to go ahead with it. And I think we probably need to, work on getting things done that way. And I know that the buy-in was important to the grants, and it seems like it's just kind of a circular process that I don't know. I don't know how it's going to end. But frankly, I just don't.
So the consortium has a lot of things to discuss at this meeting.
Yeah, big meeting.
It's very discouraging to think about trying to fund a project. And every process takes a year or 2 years. We don't have that time. We need to find solutions and move forward with solutions as quickly as possible so that people know what their options are. To get clean water into their homes, so.
And that's the biggest problem is we can't define our options and we can't find the cost and without doing something else first. So to say that we have information for those people that are asking questions, we don't have that information.
I would think it would be hard for the city of Oregon to vote to approve something when they don't really know what they're approving.
That's kind of the way the whole system's working.
I think that as soon as the residents of the neighborhood know what they want, it sure be nice to get the ball moving down the road. Hopefully, the authority can start reaching out to these individual landowners or something, get progress.
I'm gonna put some pressure on Mark here, but I think that it should be pretty easy to start developing a budget and engineering to get.
And I think they do have
City
a
water.
budget to run water lines.
Jacob's over there, I should have gone back and checked.
It's, I don't know what the size of pipeline we're proposing.
It's all on the GIS, I always get this wrong, GSI website. It's all on there. Actually, there's diagrams and size of pipes and all those things. I think that the part for me that isn't on there is getting from the sidewalk to the house and getting that house disconnected and getting that house connected to their sprinkler system, which they'll no longer run off their house and their stock water and all of those other things that they have to completely disconnect their wells from the city water, have to install backflow devices and all those things. And that's gonna be plumbing costs and landscaping costs and,
Do they really have to disconnect
Yeah.
their well from landscape?
well,
No,
I don't think they really want to pay for city water for their
Well, they
2 acres.
And stock water? and-
They should be able to have 2 systems.
Right,
Yeah.
so they have to connect it because most people are watering off of their house. They hook their yard sprinkler up to their
They would
house,
get
which is,
That was
so now you're gonna have stop and waste put in and all this.
true, but I could see a huge water bill being created here
Mm-hmm,
and a huge burden.
mm-hmm.
Somebody's gotta pay for that water if they're gonna irrigate an acre of ground or 2 acres of ground and water stock and. I mean, that's just a huge cost where if they have a well there that's capable of taking care of that, why wouldn't that be the option for those people?
It
all
is.
I've heard Matt Jensen say is disconnection of water to the house for drinking water.
Yeah.
And to me, it's just one connection to the home and segregated from.
I think we can
segregated from the
appreciate-
rest of it.
We can appreciate that they might have a hose from their house back somewhere, but
Yeah,
Fine.
that's plumbing.
yeah,
There's-
plumbing and electricity, all of their sprinklers are gonna be ran off their house, well, or off their house system. Because that's how they are now, so all of that will have to be reset, replumbed. I know it would be for my house.
There are houses within that area that are already irrigating off the canal with West Extension.
Yeah, if they have an irrigation pipe, yeah.
Okay, well, we look forward to hearing how the next meeting goes.
And I think that's on.
Please.
And this is not official time, this is a call. This is CDA in a different dress. Because we can't get anybody to make any kind of a decision. And I am pretty vocal about the fact that when the count, personally, this is my opinion, that you cannot have a public meeting and have them put up figures that the city might charge you for water. When you have done, you've not asked the city, we've not done anything. You are making a bee's nest is what you're doing. Because now you're ruining your trust. Because if you're honest with people, I'm just so convinced, if I'm honest with people and I come out and say, you know, you've got a really problem and I think I can help you run the water up the street and I won't charge you to connect to it. And your rate's gonna be this. And not change it and say, you know, it will be just like any other water bill that people in the city have. There'll be increments every year or two, you'll have to raise that rate. So it won't be, I mean, but you cannot keep doing this dance around. You're just wasting your time, you're making everybody mad, including me.
And me, and with Karen. Karen and I had a discussion when we were done at the meeting.
Well,
and-
I feel so bad for those people at West Glen. Because we're making them. We don't know what we're doing, and so if they're getting distrustful. That's my story.
I'm sorry. Building trust, it's hard to build trust, like you say, though, and you can't present numbers.
Well, you can't, and so you can't get that horse so far ahead of the cart, and you've gotta give everybody time to do their due diligence. And time is not the essence here, it's the truth of the matter of getting the project done. I mean, if it takes a year or two and you're truthful when you're talking to people, you'll get it done. But if you continue this, just saying things so you can have a meeting. Anyway, that's not story.
That's
And I'm getting old, and so I can say those things.
Any other discussion on this stuff? Thank you. Fifth, enterprise zone program descriptions. Lisa.
John, you had asked for this, and Mike Gorman was going to do that, and he's busy right now with taxes, so in your packet, you just have a description of the SIP program from the state and the enterprise zone. Mike promised he will be at our December meeting and do a comparison, and John and I talked about this a little bit earlier, but I think what we'll do is we'll take the recent Lamb Weston Enterprise Zone Agreement and say, okay, give us what this would have looked like if it had been SIP. And then you'll really see the differences between the two programs.
So run an example through each program, and see where the funding falls out and how it is paid, so.
Right.
This is information, I guess, more than anything today, it's a nice comparison.
I do have
It is.
something quick that maybe Brandy can help us with is there's links on there that won't open up for us. I don't know how, I, like it said, go look at Oregon Business This or something, and it's in blue, looks like it's a link,
Yeah,
but it doesn't work.
should have been.
I
That
don't
should
know why.
have been.
Yeah. But it would help us when we were.
It is
I was
on my
going through that
computer, I'll
stuff.
go figure that out.
Okay,
I don't know why it doesn't do anything.
Yeah, I think it'd be sent out here, links.
Yeah, absolutely.
Any other thoughts on this topic? We will be a topic for discussion next month. Okay, that'll be fun. Commissioner NDA. Lisa, do you want to do that or Sam or?
Sam?
So the situation at the last port meeting, there was some discussion concerning whether we should have some sort of agreement with the commissioners or acknowledgement with the commissioners, because the Port of Morrow has lots of NDAs it enters into with prospective businesses and other businesses, and they're everywhere. And there was concern that possibly inadvertently or otherwise, port commissioners may be violating those NDAs by just talking about things that are happening. And so I think Rick was the primary one, but others were talking about what we can do about it. The port put together a NDA and I modified it, and it's in there. Ultimately, I thought that to have something that says the port and the NDA and the commissioners enter into a contract, that's probably not appropriate because you guys are elected officials. And that we can't tell you what to do, and we can't deny you office if you don't if you disclose something. So I put together an agreement that really is not an agreement, it's an acknowledgement that there are NDAs, lots of NDAs. This is confidential information. This is non-confidential information. Executive sessions are confidential. And that we're suggesting that something like this might be presented to the commissioners at the time new commissioners take the office, so that they have in one place an acknowledgement information that says we have some limitations on what we should be talking about. And so that's what I put together. It is an acknowledgement of the obligations and defining the terms. And I don't know if that really satisfies what Rick was talking about, but I think it's something that we could ask commissioners, prospective commissioners, to sign so that they know that they're aware of the limitations on what they can talk about.
Thank you, Tam. I know Rick commented, I think, is to say so, that these have been in existence in the past. I don't recall ever signing one, but I should say sure, so.
We couldn't find one.
Okay. Okay, so this is scratched.
I have a call into the government ethics, and asking, about this. And our first conversation was that statutorily, anything that's in statutory, we are bound by. Anything else, we may not be bound by. She's getting back a hold of me. It was a short conversation, brief. She just had a couple minutes. I just said, what do you think about elected officials signing NDAs? And she said, if it's in statutory regulation, then you're probably bound to it by that statutory, but not by an NDA. But she also said there's all kinds of things that she started reading that pertain to elected officials that, we have, we are supposed to be transparent with our constituents and what are, trade secrets and those type of things. If they're in statutory, she said, you're probably fine to sign it. She also said, make sure that you're signing them individually so that we know what is out there. If we just say we have all of these NDAs and we don't know what they are, we don't know what we can and can't talk about, because we don't know what those NDAs are. So individually, she said you would want to sign those individually, each NDA. Not just as a port commission as a whole, because sometimes Lisa might sign one. Lisa's bound to that NDA. We are not legally bound to that if we don't put our signature on it. So she's going to get back to me with more particulars and maybe even write something up for us. I asked her to do that, of what
So-
we're down to.
So Kelly, some of Kelly's concerns were exactly my concerns. That where can a public entity require employee elected officials to withhold information? And so when it was brought up last time, I thought to myself, well, I wonder if we can even do this. So it sure is possible that what Kelly's going to get back is something that will give us some direction concerning what we can appropriately ask for. Just to illustrate the point, if we ask an elected official, a new commissioner or an old commissioner, term-wise, an old commissioner, to assign a document, and they say, I'm not going to do it, what are we going to do about it? You know, they're elected. We can't deny them an office because of that. I think the point might be that if that information is disclosed, if the Port of Morrow enters into a non-disclosure agreement, and the Port of Morrow will say, those agreements say that it cannot be disclosed by agents, employees, attorneys, and commissioners. That's what they say. And if in fact somebody violates those, the business could make a claim against the port for not enforcing that. That's the way it is. But Kelly's point, I mean, I can't disagree with. What right do we have to tell an to withhold an office or punish an elected official for something like this? I have concerns about that.
I'm wondering if it wouldn't be better addressed in board policies instead of NDA terminology.
I think that would be wise. I just don't know. Policies, I think there's some wisdom in that.
Well, we'll wait to hear more information and then if that's.
Yeah,
okay with her.
I'll ask for her to do that in a write-up, so everybody can see it, she's not on the phone with me, so I just asked her for myself, because I was.
Maybe we should have Sam communicating with her, so.
Oh.
We
That's a good idea. I don't care, I just wanted the information for myself, but if I would love to share, I mean, I would share whatever she wrote back to me, so.
I mean, it's something that we hadn't really thought about before, but we do sign NDAs all the time. There are people that won't talk to us until we've signed an NDA.
Yeah.
And we go into an executive session and talk about a company or information. And it needs to be withheld in the room. Several years ago, we were in a situation where we were working with a company and they came here for a site visit. In those days, we used to get several people, community leaders, together and come do a meet and greet. And we happened to have an elected official from another organization, not ours, that went and talked about it all over town. So we obviously stopped having those kind of gatherings.
Well, does that limit information you can give us, the commissioners?
Absolutely,
And it
absolutely.
modifies it so that we don't know the
Right,
name or, yeah.
right.
And executive sessions are statutorily, although there's no penalty for that, and so it's in a statute, but there's no.
Right.
I mean, even, I don't even know that you're allowed to censor or any of those things, on any of that.
Yeah, I think board policy, their commission policy.
Yeah.
Okay, you'll.
I will. Yeah, and I can send what I did, how's that?
I'm gonna move on to South Morrow County Water and Transportation Infrastructure Development Projects.
Okay, we added this onto the agenda, and Jerry, I don't know if you were here on behalf of Ione or not, but we received $2.5 million through the for the South Morrow County Water and Transportation Infrastructure Development Project. $1.5 million to go to Hefner and $1 million to go to Ione. Ione has nearly completed their project and the spend out of their $1 million. They've not received reimbursement for quite $1 million yet, but we received a call from Business Oregon last week that told us that there was going to be an announcement come out that there'll be a 13.7% withholding of all of the a list of contracts. And this project was one of those. And that's very significant to both Ione and Hefner. Right now, the port is the recipient of those dollars. It is in our contract divided between the two projects. I think with IOM's latest spending, they would be within $5,000 of total spend out of the million, 14,000. I'm looking at your notes. Do you wanna talk to people about it?
Okay, so IOM has submitted and been reimbursed for $849,003. So that leaves $150,997 from the original million. If 13.7 of the original million is withheld, that leaves them 13,997 to be reimbursed. I am positive they've already spent that money. I am fairly positive they've already spent enough to request the full amount, should the full amount be available.
And there's no timeline on, or if the 13% will ever be returned.
By April.
Okay, so they have to submit this budget reduction to the state. And they won't know what their decision is until April. But meanwhile, Business Oregon is not going to pay out this 13.7% until.
How did they, how did they just withhold it? Is that something that's normal? That just seems
It's interesting because.
awful.
agreement.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Every agreement I have ever seen from the state regarding grant funding or loan funding even states clearly it's subject to the availability of funds on their side. And that used to really bother me, but after this many years, it's just like, oh yeah, that's just something they put in their agreement. To my memory, this has only occurred once before. And they came through with funding from a different source for us. But, you know, if that's a lot of years to be saying, oh yeah, they always say it, they never mean it, well.
A little reminder of that.
So,
So what is the?
so
I
the
was assuming-
dilemmas are that we've got IOM who's about spent out, which if we withheld, we would be withholding
137.
$137,000, so the number, yeah, that's a big number. $137,000 from them. I spoke with John Doherty of the city of Hefner. And they're getting ready to go out to bid on their project. And they already are in a very tight budget for the project that they have. They have to slow it down. They can't afford to do their project without the extra 13%. Which, you know, we're hopeful that this is all going to work out next spring, but the burden really becomes on us to make a decision on whether we're going to pay that out, because the contract is with the Port of Morrow for $2.5 billion.
Well, aside from the fact we have a contract for it, I'll speak personally for myself, I would like to see us help these communities, especially if our history has been that they do find funding, come back, or they make a decision that maybe won't be 13%. I would like to not leave these communities in a cash crunch, not giving them the money, but I guess consider loan. And so we get hopefully the rest of the money in the grant. I don't know how others feel about that.
How about, we should have a disbursement from Res coming January, to do a grant from Res funds, from the ports section of the investment.
Should it be needed,
Should.
but backfill now.
I like that.
I like that.
Is this part of, so just in the broader aspect of us being a fiscal agent for these loans, is this something that we're gonna experience? A grant, yeah, fiscal agent for a grant. Is this something that you think we're gonna start experiencing more? So if we start being a fiscal agent for these grants, you said you have never seen it, but is it because the budgets are tight, or are we gonna see more of this?
I think it's because they're concerned about what they're going to get from the federal government.
Okay,
And Oregon has just gone to all of their departments. And I hesitate to get into this because I thought it was confusing. But he said, you might be wondering why we're only being asked for 5%, yet we're doing 13.7. It's because they have not a lot of lottery funded dollars. And specifically, they were asked to do the reduction out of lottery funded dollars. So apparently that equated to 13.7% of the lottery dollars. But yes, apparently everything in the state has been asked to submit an option or a possibility. How would they make reductions of 5%?
So I did have a question. Did I understand right? We don't have the language that, we don't have funds that we're not responsible for those two?
No. No, we have no legal responsibility to fund these. We're just strictly a pass-through entity.
So we do, so there is language that protects us.
In support of Morrow project with two different work descriptions.
that's what kind of, I was saying, that was. We're
Yeah, so-
gonna watch
It's not a
stuff that we
grant
get
to
into
us.
here.
So,
Well, actually, for the first time ever, this was a three-party agreement. There's City of Heppner, City of Ios, Port of Morrow, I guess it's a four-party, and the state of Oregon. There's 4 sets of signatures on this grant.
What action is needed today then, should the commission feel that they don't want to short these communities on this project? What is required?
Just, direction authorizing us to advance these funds. Now, if you want to make it clear that they've got to be repaid at some point, you're getting beyond my memory here, or my ability to suggest how to word that.
Did they have to do any matching?
Yes.
Ion's match was, and a lot of that was from other grant programs. Okay, so on construction, without the other categories, that was 5.5 million, and this is only 1.5 million of that line item. And then, like I said, there were other line items for design and some other things on here as well.
So the total amount is 137 for Ione, and how much for Hefner?
It's $1 million for 1.5 for it.
But the part that's missing,
Yeah.
the part that we would have to fund,
137 is the whole line.
And
Oh.
205 for Hefner.
and 205, so 300 and some odd thousand.
342.
I like your idea of those funds. I really do think that's an appropriate use of those. Especially since they don't have sideboards, and that, unless we can find another grant program for that other amount.
Or something else shakes out. Do
Yeah, or if they come through.
you need a motion for that, or is?
I would have you make a motion.
it's financial, so.
That we're gonna cover the cost. We'd be happy to reach out to both cities and have this discussion. And make it clear that we will carry that, but must get down to some kind of loan agreement, hoping that there's funds from other sources.
Anyone?
I'll make that motion. You wanna make that motion? Go ahead, it was your idea, you make it. I would just like to make the motion that the Port of Morrow carry the grant funding, the 13% that was not covered or that was withdrawn by the state. That we cover those costs and
How about say advance
advance that money.
the grant funding pending,
Other sources of revenue.
right, excellent.
Which could be never. Okay. We have a motion, we have a second. We have a motion and a second. To advance funds for the 2.5 million? 2.5
No,
million
advance funds for the 13.7% reduction.
reduction. All right, is there any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Vote, same sign. Okay, haven't seen.
Thank you, they will be very happy about that.
That's, I imagine, those are the. Any other old business come before us? Okay, we'll move on to new business, audit report with Deb. We have Mr. Eckenroof here for UEC rate adjustment.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for the invitation to, present to the board. Certainly, we've been very, pleased with the business relationship we've had for decades. And so I want to take an opportunity to share, the revenue increases necessary to maintain the financial responsibility of the organization, which ultimately results in rate adjustments to individual rate classes. So, President and CEO of Utah Electric, and I'm happy to go through this number of slides. I'm going to go give you some history of where we have been, as well as the components that go into the decision making that we go through. So, we're consumer-owned utility. We're not investor-owned utility. We're not for profit. One member, one vote. These are our core principles. It's important to maintain a fair and equitable vision. That's sometimes difficult to define what's fair and what's equitable. All of us have our own opinions, but in a grand scheme of things, I'm going to talk about the rate and revenue impacts, the member mix, rate components, the dollar breakdown, running a tight ship and UBC's performance to demonstrate that I believe we have been a good fiduciary for our members, power supply impacts, which is always someone's question, and of course, how to manage the risks that are involved in a complicated business, much like the report does. So cost drivers, there's no doubt the biggest cost we have is power supply. And we have two components of power supply, that which serves our traditional members and those which serve market-driven members. And so Bonneville only supplies power, or generally supplies power for our traditional members. They provided a 11% rate increase that started October 1st. All right, revenue increase, we needed to come up with that money. Broken down 8.3% for power, 17% for transmission. The 8.3% serves our traditional members, the homes and businesses. Prior to 2011, our growth exceeded that. The transmission is shared amongst all our members because everyone uses that. Predominantly, it is to the large growth members that are here at the port and in Harveston and other places. After a 3-year rate adjustment, they're going to talk tomorrow about how they need an additional 2%. That's another $500,000, much like the discussion we just had about surprises and who's going to pay for these things. This is coming down the pipe. We believe we can manage around it by cutting costs. However, these are things that, as much as people attempt to say, these are our rates, they're fixed, there are changes. So some of the cost drivers, supply chain, we all know about material rising costs, insurance costs, it is very expensive these days. Wildfire insurance is a huge component of ours. In addition to the wildfire plan that we have to mitigate wildfires and the extra maintenance and operational skill sets that we use, not restoring power without investigating, these things all add cost drivers to this. And regulatory compliance aspects of the utility business today. Inflation, we know the consumer price index annually, the peak was in, I can't read this, 2023, I think everybody knows that, 8%. But over the past time period, 44%. These are what we are all working with. These are not my numbers, these are the consumer price index. So look at our member mix in 2013, and as you can see, our industrial loads portion has grown dramatically. Okay, I don't think this will surprise anybody. The numbers might be specific for you, but
doesn't surprise anybody. I think that there has been a huge growth in the large industrial loads. Let's talk about rates. We need to recover the millions of dollars Bonneville is asking us to pay for. We need to recover millions of dollars of increased cost of materials, labor, insurance, those kinds of things. These are the three basic charges on almost everyone's electric bill. There is a basic charge, which is the monthly rate. There is a energy charge, which is volumetric, the kilowatt hour consumption to use. A member has the most control of that, use less, pay less, all right? And then there's a demand charge, that is the peak capacity, generally applied to the largest loads, and we have irrigation, industrial, commercial. You will notice, if you're a member of Utah Electric, there is the demand on your bill, and the price is zero. We've discussed whether or not we will employ that in the future as these costs are being broken out by the power suppliers. Don't need to do it if we don't have that financial signal, but at the same time, trying to educate the membership through the course of time. So let's talk about the rate comparison. Many of you may have seen this type of display in our member relation or member publication of Rural Life. The easiest one to deal with the basic charge, 26 and 2860. Generally, it's a 10% increase. This is the increase that Bonneville applied to us. And so we increased the basic charge by roughly 10% in each of those categories. The next easiest one to talk about is the demand charge. There has been no change. All of Bonneville's costs have come through energy and transmission, which is volumetric, not on the capacity side. So we elected not to impose that on others. We looked at it. We looked at putting it all in basic charge. We looked at putting it all in demand charge. And so we elected to move it into the energy charge, the old and new. And you'll see some increases from 6 to 22.5%. These are rates. They have to generate the revenue to fill the gap. And so you can see in some of these commercials up 22.5%. We had 4 cents is the old kilowatt hour rate for commercial accounts. These are smaller business accounts. They're not the large food processors or rate schedule 6 or data centers and things like that. These are the strip malls and the welding shops and things like that, for example. At 4 cents a kilowatt hour, our average cost from Bonneville exceeds 4.4 cents. We could not continue to sell retail for less than wholesale. And you add 10%, which is what we tried to do, it still didn't cover it. And so we had to tweak some of these. The industrial less than 10 megawatts, these are typically many of the large businesses in the port, all right? They didn't go up as much because they are covering their costs. It all has to do with the number and the size and consumption that they use so that we can attempt to be fair and equitable. Large irrigation at 19%. We did some studies on this and their impact. Tomorrow we have an irrigators meeting. We will be on the carpet with them. And we do this twice a year. I expect to have a good understanding with them. They have been shared this news that it was going to be double digit for over a year. It is still shocking. There is no doubt about it. But with no demand increase, the overall revenue impact is about 10%. And so this is where, if you look at the rates, you can get scared. If you look at the overall impact, and everyone is different. If you have a huge demand cost but no consumption, your revenue increase is very small. If you're all kilowatt hours and no demand, and it's closer to these numbers. And so everyone has to look at it from their own particular case. The large industrial, these are over 10 megawatts. This is what we call rate schedule 6. These are the largest ones that we have. All right. And so let's talk about this. You can look at this in the website. The QR code there, if you want to take a picture of it, you would go to rate schedule 6. It has a delivery charge of $1.24 per kVA of transformer. The bigger you want it, the more you pay that, whether you use it or not, that protects the membership for these large industrial sites that are generally custom built for their needs. But more importantly, the energy and transmission charges will be passed through to the member, all charges and costs. There is minimal risk to the traditional members that these large loads and their operating characteristics, whether they grow suddenly or in an unfortunate situation, they decide to move away, all these costs get passed through. So let's look at the dollar breakdown. For every dollar of revenue Utah Electric receives across the board, 86 cents of every dollar, 86%. I like the easy math of a dollar for every day. This 13.8% of $1.5 million, I can't do that math. But 86 cents of every dollar goes right back out the door. And they want their bill paid, whether or not you or I pay our bill. Okay, so keep that in mind. And this is our operating costs. These are fixed and O&M costs to run the distribution and transmission system that you drive by every day. The final part, it's 5% margin. This allows for unexpected costs, the delay between payments and bills, and in case something happens. But the nice part, which is go back to their core principles, a consumer-owned utility, any excess margins get refunded back to the members, allocated through capital credit, and are paid back. So let's look at our performance. I want to help validate where we are, where we have been, so that you feel comfortable. There is not this elephant in the room that you're paying for somebody else. Now, these are numbers from CFC. This is one of our financial institutions that looks at all the costs. This isn't the investor-owned utilities in the state or other states. These are all the cooperatives. The green line in the country, this is the median. There are people above it and below it. And the red is the state, the Oregon co-ops. And you can see in 2024, the average electric revenue is 12 cents in the country for all cooperatives and 10 cents for the state. Whereas UEC's performance, we are historically below that. Okay, this is revenue. Revenue includes rates and bills, non-payment, fines, and other things that come in. This is all electric revenue. You'll see it trends up at the end, and we'll talk about that because this is all the revenue, including the wholesale power cost that serves those big loads. Okay, this graph can be somewhat complicated, so bear with me. So this is when the first data center came in. Other than the last few years, you haven't seen much. You see a little dip, pre-pandemic. Well, what took place? The pandemic. Sales went down, costs went down, not necessarily UEC sales went down, but throughout the country, the sales went down. Therefore, excess power was cheaper. The revenue cost is down. These aren't kilowatt hours, these are dollars of revenue. Something else took place in 2023. UEC was able to offload our responsibility of wholesale power supply for these large loads. Talk about how we split this up. And they now become responsible for this pass-through. So if it costs them $10, they pay the $10. It costs $5, they pay the $5. But what's really interesting, something else took place, and I'm gonna overlay the natural gas price in the country. You can see the instability in the early years, power costs were kind of up, then it kind of stabilized during fracking and some of these other things. There was a little dip down pre-pandemic, it started to go up, and then there's a spike. The invasion of Ukraine. Now, gas prices don't exactly equal electric prices, but it's a disruption in the economy. natural gas is used throughout the country to power utilities. And even though we have a lot of hydro and other resources around here, it does impact the market price. That those who go out to the market to buy power and those who then get it passed through, and it impacts the revenue. So let's look at UEC performance for residential revenue. Those of us in the room, the state is in red, the nation of co-ops is in green. This is when the data center came in. Historically been one of the lowest providers of residential rates in the country. We can look at small commercial, following a similar trend. Notice the gap between UEC blue, the state in red, and the nation in green. Irrigation. Same thing, the gap is huge. We can almost double our rates and still be competitive with the cooperatives throughout the nation. And in green, UEC refunded through Bonneville $26 million over 10 years of irrigation discounts. We passed those through for the irrigation. Large commercial, this is the big one, boom. The wholesale power market, since we passed that risk off, they pay those costs. That is revenue to us, they pay those costs back to us, it reflects in revenue, but it does not impact the rates through 1 through 5 plus the irrigation rate. This I find interesting. It give me a little bit of time to explain it. This is the power costs. We shared that 86% of our current revenue, this is in 2024, goes to power costs. The average power cost in the country is in the green line. The average power cost in Oregon is in the red line. Same power UEC buys from BPA is the co-ops up and down the river and down south. Why is there a little gap? The efficiencies of which Umatilla operates. But in 23, when we offloaded the power supply responsibility to market purchases, you can see it goes up to the national average. So it does not impact our traditional members. What's our O&M cost per kilowatt hour? Long before the data center, we have been historically more efficient than our peers. You can see even in Oregon, the red line is now above the national average for their operation and maintenance costs. Oregon typically has a higher labor cost, has other obligations. Utah Electric has been successful in diminishing those costs per unit. All right, the dollars are still higher, but the per unit cost, you will see it starts to maybe trend up. Maybe we have hit the bottom, but it's still dramatically below the state and national average. We can look at our line losses, how efficiently we build our facilities, the conductor, the transformers. We've gone to higher voltages, lower line losses. You can see this downward trend. All of this, even when the data centers have come, have not impacted the relative burden on our ratepayers. Some of the advantages of Utah Electric, what we do is the capital project you do around the system. This is just the western half of Hermiston West to Oregon. Here, $77 million of projects that UEC's ratepayers have put in. They're in purple, right? Predominantly to help serve irrigation and rural areas in order to get across the large, vast distances. There are hundreds of other projects throughout substations and other things. Some of these are distribution, some of these are transmission. $40 million of projects were funded in cooperation with a developer. Utah Electric picked up part of it because we saw the ratepayers picked up part of it, I should say. And the developer paid part of it because they saw mutual benefit. But $121 million was paid for solely by developers. These could be large loads, could be wind and solar projects, could be other utilities who want to use UEC system to meet their needs. So over literally $250 million over the last 5 years, and about 77, say $100 million, less than half of it, was a burden on ratepayers. The traditional ratepayers. So this is very complicated, and this is the best I can do. I did this graph in 2022, so it's to scale. I did not come out to 24, 25. We talk about Bonneville and the entitlement, the cheap hydropower. Everybody's taking it. Yeah, everybody is taking it. Our entitlements, we exceeded it, 1.6% of the Bonneville system back in 2011, we exceeded it. Just a new farm, a new house, a new business, well before the data centers kick in. That's the entitlement. Anything that has grown above that is eligible for preference power. If Bonneville has it, they don't have it. And so they're entitled. So we can either let Bonneville provide it for us when they have it, or we can go out and market. Sometimes the market's cheaper than Bonneville, sometimes it's not. You know, I don't want to get into whether we go to Target or go to Walmart, but this is how we acquire that extra power. And then those that are not eligible, over 10 average megawatts, the large industrial load, those are not entitled. They can never use Bonneville resources. The burden is not on our traditional members. It goes to those who cause the growth. This is one of our core principles, not only in the construction, but also the ongoing operation of the business. One of the nice things that we seldom tell our story about is UEC's energy efficiency program. In the last 2 years, has saved 36 million kilowatt hours. Now, I think we can all probably guess that the orange line should probably be increasing ever so slightly with new homes and businesses, farms. It's not. We're saving as much or more than the inherent growth of the organization, which allows those kilowatt hours saved to go back down into the entitled portion to preserve for our traditional members the entitled power of the lowest cost from Bonneville. It is one of we talked to Janine Benner from the ODO, and we explained why we have such a robust energy efficiency program. Very few organizations spend money to lower their bills, but we're moving it from the high cost down into the low cost. And this saves everybody. Yes, the ratepayers pay for this, but it also ensures greater access to the low cost. So this is how many kilowatt hours units electric is sold. You can see where the data centers came, where the growth came. I don't think anybody knew. But look at where the red and the green lines are. UEC has always been a large co-op in the country. We position ourselves to be able to provide the economic development and opportunities for the community to grow. So if you look at that previous graph with the oranges and the blues and stuff, scaling it to this, where does this fit? How is this keeping the cost down? And you can see it follows it spot on. Shifting these costs to those who caused it and preserving what we have down at the bottom. We have been at that blue bar since 2011. There is no Bonneville power available. Now, they sometimes have excess power that they sell to the market. Yes, we will buy it if we can, but it's at market price. We're competing with California and other states to acquire the power, and it's passed through. That makes sure the hydropower, the clean power that Bonneville does have in excess stays in Oregon and doesn't necessarily go somewhere else. And it serves all of us in the best way possible. And when Bonneville makes an extra dollar on that surplus power that somebody else pays for, Bonneville has to distribute that across all their ratepayers on the entitlements, and then keeps that low too. So we have somebody paying the market price, which then helps subsidizes the blue bar. managing risk is one of the things that we do. I want to provide some confidence in how we manage this stuff. We have master service agreements for these large loads to establish this relationship. We have project work, probably very similar to the Port of Morrow, how you handle the projects to make sure you track the costs and you can bill that to the appropriate person. We have prepayment on infrastructure costs. We want the cash, we want it now. We don't want to we don't want surprises. We have to pay 13.8% that doesn't come back. Not everybody is willing to do that. And we require it for the benefit of our members. You build a new building, we may require it of you as well. Don't think anybody's really special, but it is important that the traditional members are protected. We have financial security. We collect cash for infrastructure bills. We collect letters of credit from banks to make sure they can pay surety bonds. I mean, if you can imagine, our annual power bill might be $500 million. And they decide to leave 2 months into buying $500 million worth of power. Power company wants their money, and we make sure they have that financial responsibility, not any of us. We could not, with the 5% margin, cover a bill that was more than a week late.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
When you put in the infrastructure or whoever these big operators are that say that they're putting in the infrastructure and they pay for it, do you own it after?
Yes. It may not always be the case, but currently we do. Okay. Margin structure, make sure they're paid as they go or maintain a profit margin for that. If we don't use it or don't need it, it goes back to them just like it goes back to you. And the most important thing, the most innovative thing is this pass through. People, well, I want to pass through, I want to pay costs. Do you really want to pay costs when you see those fluctuations? And so this is where we, as a utility, try and do what we think is best and set a rate and adjust it accordingly. Okay. So this is what we do. We build for economic development for the ports and the communities that we serve, meet their needs, protecting them the best we can. We're not always the most popular person when, Lisa brings in a prospective client, they want to know what's happening, and I say, you gotta do this, you gotta do that. They don't always like that. I don't know how many I've chased away.
Don't keep our mouth shut.
Thank you. But it is important that it's a relationship with the port and the community. The community doesn't want it, the port doesn't want it. We really don't have a place. Thank you.
I have one more question for you.
Sure.
So the large companies that say that they buy green power, and obviously the power just runs through the lines, how do they say that they're buying green power?
They don't know.
Oh.
I mean, how do I know you buy organic dog food? I have to take your word for it. Now, there are independent entities that hold them accountable or attempt to hold them accountable, okay? But I don't know. They do report through us to the state, okay? And therefore, you go to DEQ and see our greenhouse gas numbers. And you may have read in the paper where it went up 500% or so during a couple of years. That was when we moved out of one power supplier into another power supplier. This doesn't smoothly, like changing your insurance company. It's not that clean. You have to recover it and come back, and then you start building your portfolio of greener power or more flexible power, whether it has credits or not. So I don't know what they say and how true that is. I leave that up to
Well, I've heard that they buy something called a certificate.
a REC, a renewable energy
Yeah.
certificate.
Yeah.
Yep, UEC buys them too.
Yeah.
All right, and it's a way to offset, if the REC is cheaper than building a renewable plant, we can use that in transition until the cost of renewables comes down to a more number. If the membership wants only green power and no paper certificates, you will pay those costs. whatever you've heard about renewables being cheaper, that has not been proven because I'd be all over.
What is the difference?
It
If-
varies, but it's.
If the customer wanted to buy all green power, what's the difference in?
We have paid as much as 10% more and still can't find enough. All right,
Robert, thank you.
thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. I hope we can work together again. Right, Lisa?
Yes.
All right, thank you.
I will say, Robert, we really do appreciate the relationship with UEC, but we pay those bills just like everyone else does when they need something from UEC. We make that payment upfront and but it's a great relationship. But thanks for explaining that.
I hope this was helpful for everyone.
Very much. Yeah, because that's a complaint, that we hear, the growth is increasing my electricity bill. It's nice to hear the protection they're trying to afford.
So recently, the state of Oregon passed Bill 3546, I believe, for investor-owned utilities. We had legislators, both representatives and senators out here to show them what we do. They pretty well listened and applied it to them. Now, the business organization of investor-owned utility versus a member-owned or consumer-owned utility is different. They're spending capital to make a rate of return. And it doesn't quite work the same way. You're reading about that in the paper these days. It's very complex, but I hope others can resolve it. I think UEC has done a pretty good job of doing so, and we hope to continue. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
All right. Lots of information.
We're at 2 hours now. We would want to take a 5-minute break because I don't know that we're going to have an executive session to break then. And we still have quite a bit of agenda left. It's up to you.
Yes, let's break for 5 minutes. Appreciate that. Thank you. Next item on the new business agenda is CIS best practices program. Is that you, Brandon?
Yes, so we do it every year. There's usually a different topic every year. You have to attend trainings and usually adopt a policy. Usually it's just a different topic every year. It says 2% when we affiliation, being a member of an affiliate organization. So just really just letting you know that we fulfilled all of those obligations and it's a 10% discount. Credit for our next premium.
So if there's anything the commissioners need to do in the future to satisfy that requirement, we'll let us know.
Attending like the, the annual conference, that's a check mark as long as some of us does it, but yeah, we will always let you know.
All right, thank you. Next, CDA land use proposals. This is something that I had talked with Lisa about, discussing. As we hopefully someday get ownership of the land of the CDA. What is the use going to be? What are the plans? What's been talked about? I don't know a lot about it. And I think it should be a topic for discussion with the commission, so that we have some idea of our thoughts. That's why it's on here. Lisa, you had a suggestion of maybe for plan.
I did, because we're coming up on going out for request for proposals for a strategic planning process. If you remember, we're waiting until January because the state will pay more than the typical grant amount that they were paying, although it could be quite a little bit. I don't know, but we've got a better chance of getting more of that cost of that covered if we wait until January to apply. So that's what we'll do. But I think it's just a perfect time to talk about this very topic. We don't typically say, oh, this land is going to be used for this. It's probably been more driven by utilities, what's in the area, connect whether they need water or wastewater, what the demands of the client are, and in terms of property, we haven't just designated property for specific use, but we certainly, that's a big open book out there, so we have to start talking about it.
For me, I don't even know all the possibilities that could be out there, but I'd love to hear about them. For more information.
Yeah, but one, concern is the water, just where are we getting water? There's, barely enough water for fire protection. Those kind of infrastructure. Things would-
We're building out water infrastructure, though, Kelly. So there will be water ability out there. Not a huge amount, but there will be water.
That's the kind of stuff that I just would like to discuss at least now.
You bet.
I don't know about
And then the east project is a fairly large water
It
project
is.
too.
We'll be able to buy
Yeah, we
projects
can
from
tag
our
those.
neighbors.
What's the east project?
It's the water coming from the,
Oh,
it's
the,
permit, is it Ernest or Utah?
Umatilla County.
Yeah, it's-
so the reuse, recharge, that project? No.
I think it's might be tied to it somewhat.
Umatilla is buying, well, Umatilla is buying water from Umatilla. With pipeline to the property.
This was a major topic of discussion, January, thereabouts, we.
Or February.
Just out of curiosity, what's the city cost of strategic plan for,
Was it 125 last time?
Probably, because that's higher than the number that was gonna come out of my mouth, so you're probably right.
so expensive?
It is.
Well, as you know, we have a lot of cleanup still to do out there too. All those old hits, who's gonna pay for that, and can there be some trading on in that respect? As far as how we get those areas cleaned up. I'd love to hear some.
Are those covered, will those kind of things, Mark, be covered with the money from the sale, or? I know it's limited what we can use that money for, would that be projects that we could? No, there's just a
It's gotta
specific,
go back
That's up to the CDA board.
Up to the CDA.
well, I was thinking that the list of what we can use that money for was pretty well defined. And wondering if that money is going to be able to cover some of those things that we need to do.
Would be nice, good question. Or there could be a deal worked out where the client actually buys a piece of ground that's clean, but is forced to clean that piece of ground. Something like that. There's lots of options out there. Just to get those properties cleaned up. It's gonna be huge, very expensive.
They're not construction right now.
Yeah, John took a nice tour out there.
Yes, I saw that. Yeah. Moving on, resolution 2025-13 credit agreement with Land West.
So Brian Jackson was sitting over here for 2 hours and he had to go home, stand on a meeting. He was going to be here in case you had any questions about their project, but Enterprise Zone Board agreed 5-0 to 5.
It's
Three, right. To approve the tax abatement with Lamb Weston on their Portland West expansion.
And this is, I was one of those voters, and I voted in the affirmative, spoke in favor of it, because of the same agreement that we had 3-4 years ago, long ago, anyway, for a lesser dollar amount, or, they got approved, and then more needed to go ahead with the project, and so it was never used. So this one is a lesser dollar amount, but it's same, with the same terms. It is 100% property abatement. It is, does have requirements, the enterprise zone, no. There's 30% of the median wage in the county. First average. Sorry. And it is based on the facility itself, that's the property that's qualifying for it. It's not company wide, it's not. I voted for it for a number of reasons. One, they're an important employer in our area. Two, I'd like to see them grow. I'd like to see them continue, but I hear that there might be other challenges for them, that company in other areas. I'd like to see them stay here, here. Large part of our secondary water treatment success. And water use. That's my justification, a representative on my service. There, yes.
I make a motion to approve resolution 2025-13, express agreement for plan busting.
I have a motion.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve 2025-14 credit agreement with Glen Weston. Any discussion at this time?
I was, glad to see him back.
I just have one question, and I guess you answered my question because it says it was the maximum amount, and I didn't know that was by law, and I couldn't find it anywhere. But now that we can see that it's 100%, but, on the minimum employee compensation, and it's 130% of the county annual average wage. Is that something that PSU study does, Lisa? How do they determine that?
The state issues, a thing, an updated list every year. I don't know how they determine it.
Okay, and it's for 35 employees, is that correct?
No, there's 90
Yeah, that's.
90 new employees. 35 is the minimum on the program. That's probably what you saw.
Okay. Well, then my next question is, it comes into effect on the third year. But it's an average compensation for the employees, so I guess when I was thinking about it, that we're saying that we're bringing in all these new employees, but it's just the average. So those new employees may not be receiving 130%. It's an average of the whole entire project. Is that correct?
130% of that average. And that is determined annually by the state. We get a sheet that tells us that number. I want to say it was,
But she is correct. There could be some really well-paid people and some not so well-paid people to
of
make
course,
that.
of course.
Yeah, so it's an average. So I've always heard that when we are selling this abatement program as a benefit to the people of these new jobs, those new jobs could be minimum wage jobs, not necessarily 130% of that, of this new contract. So it's the average. So like you said, Eileen, it could be a CEO and a floor sweeper, and that's the average.
Traditionally, Glen Weston does not pay the bottom end of pay scale in the area.
Yeah, I looked up from my Indeed, it was between 40 and 70 for regular jobs, not including the management type jobs. But I just thought that ever since I've ever heard about this program, that we were going to give those jobs, we're going to, you know, what kind of audit program do we see? I mean, to say that maybe instead of, maybe they give their CEO a huge raise and that just bumps it up each time, but it never, ever, does it ever come back to the worker? Where is that, you know, kind of audited or looked at? Ever?
Okay, first of all, we would never be privy to any of that information because it's considered confidential. That's done at the state level and it's done as part of the payroll reporting process. And they do have to submit that information. I would say overall, everyone in this area has more than exceeded a 30% increase over the last 3 years.
You have to take into account that every tax abatement program is under this same 130%. And in my opinion, every employer has had to raise their wages to compete for labor because of that.
Even the ones that don't have an enterprise zone abatement.
Yep.
Because they can't keep their employees otherwise.
So I did look at that study too, and I compared over the last 5 years actually, and we haven't increased over the state average. So I'm wondering how effective that these abatement programs, you know, actually are. When you look and you compare, we've gone up pretty much with the minimum wage throughout Morrow County, nothing more, nothing less than the state average. So are they working? Are we actually, we're still at 11% poverty. What's the benefit to our people? I mean,
Jobs.
just a job, just a minimum wage job.
These companies.
They're not
would
minimum
not be
wage jobs.
located
No,
where they are.
they're not minimum wage jobs. Let's get that cleared up. I don't know any employer, Marcy, you're there.
They're not.
No.
Their starting wages are about 21 to 22, and their top level supervisors are at $34 an hour. And so they're not minimum wage, it's not.
So 40,000 a year. That's-
No, an hour.
No, I'm saying that's. Indeed shows those as $40,000 a year.
That would be very low, and that would be just shy of $20 an hour is
Yeah.
what 40,000 would be.
In talking to these, companies, many years ago, they even explained to the governor that if it wasn't for these enterprise zone exemptions, they would not be located in Oregon. They'd be across the river,
Well, we can always say that, but are they effective?
obviously.
I'm hearing that, yes, they are. Well, puzzled by that.
Well, I'm saying that the numbers don't show that. We're not showing any increase.
Well, I'm not sure what studies you're looking at, but I will tell you, my knowledge of probably previously the lowest paying food processor in Boardman had to hike their rates 27% across the board, just to keep a crew.
And you're attributing that to,
Well, the fact that people are coming in and paying more, and so then they have to pay more to keep their price.
They're gonna go somewhere else.
so are we doing ourselves a favor or a disservice?
Providing jobs, which I think is huge.
But I'm
Yes,
saying that if we have to continue to raise rates because we're putting this 130% onto the businesses, then are we not putting ourselves in the same boat?
I think that we're increasing jobs and we're increasing the wages for those jobs, which ought to be helping the people that live here.
So
And
those
the people
people
that
would
are
be
seeking
30,
jobs here.
30 or 90, according to Brandy, but it says 35. Those will be new hires or those will be, because aren't they revamping their plans? Is that my understanding of it?
Part of those have to be new.
Are they new hires or?
Part of the, that's how those enterprises in sport, they have to be.
They're new jobs,
additional.
they're new jobs.
I thought that question was specifically asked during this meeting, that they were new, because we knew that there were just been layoffs.
Yeah,
So.
that's why I was wondering how they, who audits that? That's my question is, how do we know that this is what's going to happen?
As I recall, was it the, to give us the tax,
Mike,
Mike Gorman.
Mike Gorman, I think he's the one who certifies us. Doesn't he?
Not payroll related, he doesn't get payroll
Doesn't get to the
information, that's all
100%.
done at the state level.
Okay.
He certifies that they actually spend the money on the building,
Okay.
or maybe he even gets a report from the state on whether they met their other requirements.
He's gonna be here next month, we can ask him that question.
Right, okay.
So we have a motion on the floor. Is there any other further discussion? Call for the vote. Okay. All those in favor of the motion as stated, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Unanimous. Thank you. Resolution number F on new business resolution 2025-14, code of ethics for sport. There is involved.
I'm standing for that.
Yes.
Okay, just making sure. That didn't know that.
Okay. I'm sorry, thank you for clarifying that. Yes, that's right.
Thank you, sorry.
4-0.
This is a policy update that we're looking at our handbook. I think we mentioned last year when we did our handbook that it'd probably be every year. There were several changes that take effect January, so I'm still working on it. But this is one I know that Rick had brought up, talking about food and beverages and things like that. There was a recent opinion on it, so we wanted to make sure that we got a policy out. that talk about compensation package and get that at least in there, but it will be added to our handbook.
What action are you needing from us today?
I did put this in resolution form because it is a policy. It will be added to our handbook, but we wanted to make sure we have something.
So basically, the paragraph that says food and beverages provided by the port is an addition, and everything else is pretty close to what our policy already said.
So we're meeting current state laws with this policy.
It was an
That if
opinion
we
from
provide you with lunch, you can eat it.
Yes,
That's what it said.
basically is what it said. There was an advisory opinion that said that we needed to state that you are allowed to accept that.
That's the
For clarification, you said you're still working on it, so.
But this is, so we made this as a policy for you to adopt it, so I have this. This policy is it, but it will be added to our handbook, that exact language.
Okay.
So yes, I would like you, if you choose to approve this policy.
I would entertain a motion, should somebody be willing to make one.
I'll make a motion that we approve resolution 2025-13.
That works for us.
Oh, mine are page 4. Sorry, 14.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a second? I'll say. The motion was second to approve resolution 2025-14, code of ethics report employee policy for discussion. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. 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 Opposed, same sign. Carries. Any other new business to come before us, staff? Okay. All right, on to staff reports, projects update.
I guess I'll lead off here. I think everybody knows that we hit a huge milestone about a week and a half ago. So we got Jeff Wilson here, he's a report, been here what, 3 years?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah. So he's gonna give you an update. Jacob's also gonna walk through some of these projects, but I'm gonna turn it over to these guys.
Well, we're gonna start with Farm Bridge, okay? That's all right. Okay, so, Farm Bridge Lagoon, permanent power was installed last week. The maintenance and stabilization was completed as well this week. O&M manuals were submitted to DEQ and approved on October 31st. We met the DEQ commission deadline. And, programming and controls are to be finalized on November 15th.
That walkway is the length of a football field. It's big.
Have you been up and down it, Mark?
Huh?
Have you been up and down it?
I know it's fine, I should. In fact, it should be an exercise for everybody.
Yeah.
That was just a little.
Our stair step.
Eric, you got farm for me. Okay, there's. Farm for, yeah.
Okay, Farm 4, right now, as you see in that picture there, the liner's not completed yet, but, right now, the whole liner is installed. There's just a little bit of liner left to do up the actual access road that they got to weld together. Once again, the liner should be completed the next week and a half. The lagoon stabilization is complete. Right now, currently, Port Morrow's, coordinating with, Umatilla Electric to get permanent power installed. The commissioning letter to DEQ will be, submitted by this Friday. Completion of Farm 4 is still slated for December 1st.
We don't see the, usually using that. Or anything that very. Yeah.
But,
We got some time. Yeah, we got a lot of storage. And we're on schedule to do, and we're on schedule. Good.
How many gallons was Farm 3?
Farm 3's 1.8. So the Farm 3's just over 800 million gallons in reality. The design form was 750, but there's some
we asked Matt benefit about how much material we had to remove from the bottom of the great form today, so. Between the two, I think we've got a new, with 3 and 4 involves about 1.6 billion gallons.
Not to get through the winter.
Also,
Impressive.
Next.
Yeah.
Wilbur Cludley? Oh, yeah. No, Southlift. Jake, I'll let you, take this one.
so down South Lift to get our new South Lift station has been down there for going on 18 months now. To get it tied in, we've been working through some complications with existing utilities, bypassing the old station. So this work is really getting new trunk lines to get the old lines coming from the plants bypassed around the old station to get them tied into our new station. So, we're getting dialed down to, I think we're talking about weeks now to getting that new Southfield station online instead of months. And the last element is definitely the most complex, which we're trying to install a big concrete vault on live lines, before we cut pipe out of the ground and divert the water. So our crews are down there working in some pretty tight and deep quarters groundwater. And it's pretty complex, but we're making good progress.
The scope to me is amazing. Everything about the port infrastructure is amazing.
Oh, it's Maggots. Maggots.
So for the past months, we've been injecting magnesium hydroxide to our wastewater flow for pH adjustment and health of our digesters, and it's getting rather expensive on a rental perspective, because we've got a tank rented, and it's really a temporary, improvement. So we're working on final, the permanent improvement. So this is basically a containment pit that a permanent tank will be placed inside of, and we'll be building a pole barn around it for winter protection. So the existing tank right now is insulated and heated, which isn't very conducive for winter operations. So this will mean we'll have heaters and uninsulated tank inside of the structure. So it'll make our accessibility and our maintenance a lot easier and hopefully a lot cheaper.
Expenses down, that's good. And this is something that we're gonna have to add for secondary treatment anyway. So,
This is where you're storing the.
Maggots,
yeah. So it's the injection.
There you go, Sean.
Oh, Wilbur Cludley project. All right, yeah, our contractor mobilized in September, by, last month, October. You can see right here, so this is the north end of the project, the bottom left picture. They will actually start excavating out, moving south. On average, when they started, they were moving about 80 truckloads of dirt a day. This recent, last week's average was 140 a day. The total exported to date is 51,000 cubic yards. There, about 80,000 cubic yards is left to export from the project, and they're roughly 40% complete. And their completion date should be around mid-February for the project. Is if we keep progressing the way we are. Sure. Wonderful.
And Mark, I saw a bid sheet, and I think you mentioned this thing earlier, that we've got no bids for the well. We're gonna go bids, so we're
we're reanalyzing well 7 again, like I told you. So we're taking a look at that before we actually get procured on the 3 bids. So that's our plan, is basically go out and get 3 quotes now, since nobody bid the project. And who can ever meet the best timeline, but that was the main reason we got no bidders. Nobody could meet the timeline. We wanted it up and done and running by basically next July. So we didn't have the summer issues up there that we've had in the past, and nobody could beat that schedule. So in conversation, I think some of the best scheduled stuff we got are gonna be like November or something like that.
And that's for a new well, or that's for checking out the wells?
Well, we won't know about checking out the well, might be quicker. We haven't got that far yet, John.
Also get out there December, check something out, and their generator for the first one, with the power to it. Do a bunch of stuff with.
Yeah, well, good luck.
Yeah.
Okay, I've got more projects.
We got-
Oh, I'm sorry.
We're busy around here, John.
We really are.
I'll go with the surface water treatment facility.
Go ahead.
East Beach Surface Water Treatment Facility. At this point, all the process piping is installed and encased in concrete. All the other slab conduit, electrical, plumbing is completed on it. They're working on the, pouring the membrane building, footing in slab. They're approximately about 30% complete on it. As far as the solids holding basin, that's the other large structure to the, south of it. All footings are complete on it. They're working on the walls, forming and pouring those. Forming and pouring of the walls is about 40% complete. Overall project completion, they're about 35%. That's on the East Beach treatment facility. As far as the airport, treatment facility. Membrane building, the process piping and, is all installed in case of concrete in the membrane building. They're currently working on the conduit, underground, under slab conduit and plumbing. Both of those are about 35 to 40% complete at this moment. All the storm and manholes are installed outside the facility, chemical piping is complete. Piping in and out of the building is complete, potable water fire suppression system's been bought out by the fire marshal on both buildings actually. Right now, the solids holdings basins, they're pouring footings on that. They're about 65% complete. They're estimated to be done with footings in 2 weeks and start forming and pouring the walls on the solids holding basin. Overall completion on this project is about 30%.
How does weather affect all this pouring? So
It's not cold yet. No.
It's not yet. Not yet.
They got blankets, they got heaters. So.
Yeah, cold weather concrete's never fun, but it's a little processed down a little bit, but there's ways to mitigate it. Additives in concrete, blankets, heaters.
Sounds like you have experience with that.
Yeah, I've done time to. As far as Terminal 1 dredging, the project has been awarded. We're anticipating the contractor to move in around December 1st for that.
because we have a grant deadline pretty soon.
We have to get it done this year.
Yeah.
We have a
permit deal.
for the in-water work window,
This work window, it goes to March
March 31st.
31st.
Yes.
We perform way better other
I noticed.
Michelle didn't know
We're doing the work in the first window that we actually have the approval to do it, so.
Yes, yeah, that's right, it was forever.
Yes, been a process. The other thing the other project that we recently awarded was the T3 container handler and the crane controls for the entry crane. The container handler's got a lead time of about 10 months. The crane controls, we have slated to have installed in March during the off closure for the river. That way it doesn't interfere with Tidewater's daily operations.
Good plan. That was also part of the percent grant.
So to feed this surface water treatment plants, we've been working on design and we're moving into construction on the Quincy pipeline. So Rocky was the successful contractor. This might be kind of recurring, but we're waiting for the government to reopen. Because we've been waiting on two permits that are pretty critical, one was the canal crossing on West Extension. And the other is all the lateral canal crossings out Quincy Road, so we're hopeful that as soon as we reopen, we get those permits in hand. Rashi started to haul materials for the project to site. And we have all of our access permits for pump stations for Morrow County. We've also got our Morrow County right entry permits for Quincy Road and Tower Road, so all those are in hand. Last permit, or after we get the federal permits, is we'll be turning in building permits for the booster stations, probably November 20th. Once we get planning approval. The other feeder line that will go out under Wilson Park, we're in the final stages of getting final CID sign off on out of time their line, and then, we'll be moving into construction with, tapping their line and getting the first few hundred feet done before November, or before March 15th. And then next summer, we'll be running that line, down to East Beach, facility. So. The other big update I've got is secondary treatment designs progressing. We're supposed to open the RFPs for the major technology solutions last Thursday. We had to postpone until November 18th. We had some vendors that had some concerns with bonding, and so we're addressing some of their concerns. It was in best interest of the public to postpone for a couple weeks. We don't anticipate that to affect our final design timelines, but I'll later on to confirm that.
Very good. Impressive. Lots of work getting done.
There's more, but I think we can stop there.
There's some more. Okay, thank you very much. It's impressive. Maintenance update, that kind of.
Or, Tim's not here, is he?
He's not. Oh. He's not good.
So we already kind of went over the south, that's what the maintenance guys are working on, so. Yeah, thank you.
And getting ready for Christmas lights and.
Well, pull alongside you for Christmas. And financial update, I mean,
Okay, so you'll see that our unrestricted cash is now holding pretty steady. We will have, loan and bond payments due here before the end of November, but we have those funds set aside in the government pool for that purpose. The only really, unusual thing that jumped out at me is insight. You'll see that about in that little section, you'll see that we're way over on our property taxes. That's because we've entered the bills, but we have not posted the invoices out to our tenants. So there'll be a swing in that between this month and next month. Other than that, there was nothing that jumped out at me. But if anyone has any questions or concerns, as always, now or later, anytime is fine.
any questions for me? Thanks. Next. Usage reports, did everyone have a chance to look at them, if they have a question on usage reports?
No. Usage is still continuing down.
They were water.
Yeah, water and
They're going to continue to conserve.
just.
Right.
Yeah, they're gonna conserve it. So we've got to find ways to cut costs too.
Just gonna say, how was that, sorry, first, Bill,
Well, we're gonna have them give us, but they're gonna use every single month for the next 10 years. Then we could build a perfect time. They keep wanting us to give them perfect numbers, and it's kind of hard with that. Exact numbers. That is what Land Weston plans to conserve 5% a year for the next 5 years. And keep reducing.
wonder if they rebuild will.
That new build will help, it will bring them back up. So that will, yeah, will do.
Anything under other staff reports? Moving to. Other reports, we probably outlasted everybody. Willow Valley Economic Development Group.
It's strong.
BCDA.
I think we're recording.
Yeah, it's already got her.
I vote.
We meet tomorrow.
Yeah, we do, we meet so.
So I is working on one thing that they're in the stages of developing. Now that we finally are at a point where you can see the window of actually having a sewer system that's functional. that then opens the door to the 14 to 16 lots that are not developed in Ione. And so where we have Fresno, to Ione, to Idaho, we've been using some of that for some business development, but I think we're going to put a policy in place to make available a fairly large sum of money per development for somebody who, for a homeowner that wants to build from scratch on one of those lots. We're looking at, the number's not settled, but somewhere between $25,000 and $50,000 check for you to build from scratch on a lot that see if we can get some new construction going once we have, you know, when we really look at the CREZ money and for business development, that's the sweet spot. That's why we did the sewer, that's why we got new school facilities, try to have some new housing. So that's the next piece of the puzzle, and we're gonna use CREZ money to do it. So
It'd be nice if those lots were bought and then just sat on.
no, the secret is it'll be for actual construction of building something, right? So we haven't got our policies in place, but that's the discussion. I expect us to adopt something in the next month or two and have a plan prior to, you know, when the sewer's up and running and people can feel confident that they could build on a lot, just hook to the sewer, then we're gonna try to incentivize people to build from scratch building homes.
And those lots are available for sale?
There's lots for sale, they're privately held, there's not a speculator out there right now, but there are people willing to sell lots, and so I think, you know, there are people that have sat on lots for 30 years because they were too small to live their house on, right? With sewer, you could go up and have 2-story and do it. So our world is changing, hopefully.
Yeah, congrats. Okay, any others? I'm not gonna go to the order.
John, real quick, John Doherty is on the line now. You might want to tell him the conversation that we had about the state dollar withholding and that we're gonna cover. He and I had a conversation earlier last week.
I've been online the whole time, the entire meeting, Lisa.
All right, thank you.
All right, we go to the order. Now, upcoming events, December 10th, for national regulation meeting, December 12th, is the employee holiday party. February 5th through the 8th, we're going to takers for the SAO annual conference in Seaside. Or, I'd like to go. I got room anyway.
Did you get a room?
I think so. My wife's in charge of that.
Okay, I was gonna say, so who do we need to help? Who do we need to help sign up or get rooms? That's all I need to know.
I got a room, I just.
You got a room?
Yeah, I
Okay.
didn't sign up though. It wasn't open yet.
Yeah, it's not open.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you got rooms, that's great, 'cause that's the important, that's open now.
The schedule anywhere, either?
No,
They were still-
registration's not open yet, so.
They were still looking for speakers, I think, and presentations. And all that.
All right.
I will say we can have one more date for you, November 25th. We're having a holiday lunch with our employees, turkey dinner, turkey lunch. It will be here. And we'd love to have you come. And we're starting at
I think 11, is it 11, so we're about-
I think 11.
Yeah.
I think 11.
Thank you very much. Executive session, if there is need. Last on the commissioners facilities. We will adjourn the meeting. Thanks.